ability, that is indemnity or reparation or compensation.
Constantinople, winter 1915. Telegrams are again dispatched from the Turkish Ministry of Interior to the provinces. One rebukes local officials. Too many Armenians are being left in towns in proportion to Muslims.
Gave also order that the Armenian population should not exceed 5% of the population in the areas that the Armenians were sent.
Many Armenians tried to escape to Aleppo, the last major town on the death march to Der Zor, a small, desolate village, the final killing fields. The Turks were deporting the Armenians faster than they had room on their railway cars.
Bindi Karabaya, indi Katmaya, indi Katmaya, orada başladı, evlat kaçmaya, orada başladı, evlat kaçmaya. Türkler başladı, alıp kaçmaya, alıp kaçmaya, dini bin uğruna ölen Ermeni, dini bin uğruna ölen Ermeni.
The Armenians invented that song. Their hearts were broken. They would sing and weep at the same time. We would sing it, and we would also cry, instead of praying.
Katma was a small railway station northwest of Aleppo. It was selected as a point of transit because the Ottoman government had decided that Armenians must not pass through Aleppo, where they might find shelter and go into hiding. Thus Katma, the open fields around Katma, became a plain of deportees where they waited until they had to enter the Syrian desert for their final stages on the road to extermination.
Who brought you here?
The Turks. After they evicted us, they drove us all the way to the deserts.
Why did they bring you to Katma?
It was just a gathering place, a station. Here they would come and stay for 10 or 15 days. And then they would be sent out to Der Zor. After that, another group would arrive. These would go. In place would come others, until all the Armenians were exterminated.
We are from Konya to Katma. That was the first destination. We reached Katma. When we arrived there, you never believe, there were acres and acres of tents. So many people there. Finally, they squeezed us in. They told us to put up the tents. And we have put up the tent. We stayed there. And meantime, they keep shipping people to Der Zor. Every day, trains were full of people. They were shipping to Der Zor. We stayed there for 2 weeks. There were no food, no anything. People were dying from starvation. They were digging out big graves, big enough to throw maybe 100 people in there. The situation of Armenian people was terrible in Katma.
German Consul Walter Rossler in Aleppo was aware of the concentration camps. Again, he reported to Berlin.
Thousands of Armenians are being deported to Katma. 2 trains a day, blood along the tracks, corpses. Something extraordinary has gone through the land.
Rossler also had a breakdown of the total number of Armenians in his district. Those identified in red had already been killed. Again, his government refused to intervene. Typhus was rampant in Turkey. In the city of Erzincan, determined to find a vaccine, the Turks injected typhus into healthy Armenians, using them as guinea pigs. German colleagues in the same city did not stop the deadly experiments by the Turks. Dr. Ali Sahib lured Armenian children to a school steam bath for disinfection. Witnesses testified he gassed them to death. 1 month earlier, the Romanians reported to the British that the Germans had transported poison gas to Turkey in diplomatic pouches. Turkish expulsion orders swept the country like a gigantic broom, emptying towns and villages. Some were driven southward towards Palestine. German troops operating in the area witnessed the events. Among them was the young volunteer Rudolf Haus. The Armenians of the city of Urfa had heard of the deportations. The carnage was moving southward. They knew they were next.
Because of the oppression of the Armenians at the hands of the Turks, a few of the young people went into the mountains, and in groups they resisted, protecting their homes and their families.
When the people of Urfa realized that the Armenian leaders elsewhere have been taken away, they decided to defend themselves. They said, instead of dying in the desert wilderness, we will die here.
Knowing what their fate was going to be, the Armenians in Urfa start fighting with the Turks. The Armenian section in Urfa had walls around it. The Turks couldn't keep up with the Armenians, so they sent for reinforcements. The Germans brought in the 75mm howitzers.
The German officer, Major Eberhard Graf Wolfskiel, personally led the attack against the Armenians. He targeted the Armenian quarter and bombarded the American mission complex.
In October 1915, and he wrote in a letter to his wife,
There is heavy street fighting in progress. The rebels are well equipped with weapons and ammunition.
After the battle, Wolfskiel walked through the streets. He wrote to his wife,
I could smell the burning buildings and corpses. I personally led the attack on the houses. I loved the sound of the bullets and the house-to-house fighting.